Welcome back to the Wanks FPL podcast. I'm feeling really just not quite as festive as I should be at the moment. We got FPL Mac here rocking some voluntary headwear, unlike what we're used to on
Yes,
this pod.
this hat was a choice. I got a little festive wear too. Let's get
Hell yeah.
jolly.
Hell yeah.
That being said, I'm not feeling very jolly, so it's a little bit of a misnomer,
Yeah.
bait and switch on the audience.
Yeah, Christmas came when it was supposed to. That's kind of what it feels like, It'd be nice if it came early, but feels just about right. Feels like we're getting exactly what we assumed we deserved.
Yeah,
We're
we
not
got
on
Cole.
Yeah, we got like just a little bit of coal. Like it's not like, hey, you really fucked up, but it's like, you're kind of shit. Yeah, so we are obviously bitching about our game weeks, our overall ranks, and the effects that's had. It's driven, I think, all three of us to make some early transfers. I'm about to make mine. We may do those in a few minutes here. But yeah, let's jump into some game week reviews from game week 17. We'll start with our co-host, FPL Vibes FC, Sharp, who is not here, but would be donning the cone of shame, even though we have players yet to play. He did have the worst game week, so a little delayed on that. But
Yeah,
he
three-time cone dodger, I might add.
yeah, unbelievable. This guy, such a coward. Well, it started off in net with, he's been really pitching to us for the last few weeks that Raya isn't worth it and then we should go down to a goalie like for Bruggen. And sure enough, that pays off for him with an 11-pointer. Crazy. Just this man. I really can't. I have no much more to say other than that he really knows how to pick them.
He just makes bad picks, good picks. It's crazy.
It's insane. He has the Midas touch for sure.
I was watching this game, and Sunderland could have had 5 goals, and it was just not our day.
And Verbruggen was just standing on his head.
Yeah.
As the people actively rooting against our mini league rival. Yeah. So hey, good for him. Fuck me. Gahey gets a yellow card. Crystal Palace also concede 3. So
4.
really, 4. It was a 4.
I'm pretty sure it was 4. That was a crazy game.
Really rough performance out of them. Arsenal finally keep the clean. So you and I, as double Arsenal defense owners, benefited from that. But he also had Ruben Diaz from Man City. He has Foden and Saka, who both blank but get a clean sheet point. Bruno, who limped off at halftime. That'll obviously be a talking point go forward with transfer plans. Bruno Guimaraes with another blank. Frustrating, but also we kind of saw this coming. / he has good fixtures go forward, so not all that surprising. Thiago also a blank. That's obviously a big storyline for a lot of people. And then Holland captaincy. So not a whole lot to say here. Obviously Wilson yet to play, but pretty solid week. But don't think that helped his rank too much. And then jumping in,
given the fact that he's 83K, he probably lost some rank, but I'm not entirely sure that.
Yeah, he's probably still pretty close to the 5 digits, if not still in them. Mm-hmm. Jumping into my team, had the double Arsenal defense. Raya and Timber were both on for some significant bonus points for a while there too, which would have been nice. Crazy to see, when you see Raya on for 3 bonus, I'm always like, what did he do? Sometimes, bonus is like a magic wand to me. I never quite understand how it's calculated. I know it's listed somewhere, but I'm always just like, ooh, who's on bonus? Great. Anyway, the double clean, that feels good. Finally, that comes to fruition. I also had the City defense. I had Richards, who, despite conceding 4, got DEFCON, so comes back to net neutral with 2 points. Saka and Foden, Bruno Guimaraes, same midfield as Sharp. And then Holland and Thiago. My big move of the week was bringing down Bruno, selling him, and bringing in Ekitike, and that paid off in the sense that
proved to be a great move.
It worked out nicely. We'll see. We would have seen what that would have been like if Bruno hadn't gotten injured, but definitely helps to be ahead of the crowd without having to make that transfer. Yeah, not a whole lot to say. Not super happy with the week, but it is what it is. And then we'll jump to you, Mac.
Yeah, 76 points, top of the game week for the 3 Wanks. I'm not gonna lie, I watched the Spurs game and was just so distraught afterwards. And then I had some family over for Christmas, and so we were, doing activities, and I just keep casually checking the score, and I have Guehi playing against Leeds, and I'm like, oh, good, they've conceded 4. That's awesome. And so I text the guys, and I'm like, oh my God, there's no positive from the week. This fucking blows. Like, why do I play this game? They're like, dude, you're literally on top for
You're
the
in
game
first
week.
place in the mini. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was like, what are you talking about? No way. That being said, still having 76 points and hitting on my triple captain, I had a like 20K red arrow. So
Yeah, for
not what I
sure.
wanted to see. I was up to 500 and something K today. And I just think that the Cunha and Rogers goals, or specifically probably the Rogers double brace, got me. So not great.
I didn't realize Rogers was as highly owned as he was. Like I wasn't even worried about it when I saw him score, and then I was like, "Oh shit, that hurts." Wow.
No, no, and I was watching that game, and unfortunately, he looked a lot better than I thought.
Yeah,
I was looking at the numbers more than I was able to look at the games for Rogers specifically, and it just the numbers betrayed how central he's actually been to that Villa team, and it looks like he is the standout guy, which has been the main concern. So he's been great. Happy to see that, I suppose, for them. They're on 10 wins now, but just I think we all got kicked in the nuts a little bit this week.
for sure. He's Rogers in and of himself has been outperforming in his xG in a good way recently of just scoring from range and putting some just world class finishes in top bin. Did that today. Yeah, definitely somebody. There's a few players. I actually talking like large scale meta. I feel like we are at the antithesis of where we started the season, where no one was really scoring. We're looking at defensive picks. A lot of the players that we expected to do well weren't. And now we have guys who are scoring every week. You have like an Ekatike who scored 3 games in a row at least. And then Rogers, who's now scored 2. He scored 5 goals in 4 games and
Yep.
7
Wilson.
or sorry, 6 goals in 6 games and an assist in that time period as well. Anyway, so yeah, Wilson, you've got DCL who has been scoring
Crazy.
every single week.
Yeah.
So there's it actually feels like now we're sitting in a time period where we were just given all these transfers and suddenly it's like, oh shit, do you have all the guys who are scoring? Because damn, I'd love to see a team that had DCL, Ekatike, and Rogers in it. I mean, they'd be absolutely flying. So
I'm curious if we pulled up the game of the week, what that would look like, the team of the week,
honestly,
what that would look like. They probably have some combination of all of those guys.
But
if I pull it up right now, they have DCL, they have Rogers, they don't have Ekatike, but they do have Woltemade, Gordon, Rice, Ampadu, Lewis Potter. How do these people predict this shit? That's crazy.
Yeah, it's infuriating. You can't stay on top of it, but it does. As somebody who is looking to potentially roll going into this week on paper, it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. I don't have any major injuries, so I still could, but I think like a lot of other people, I'm looking at someone like a Bukayo Saka who, I've been preaching this for a while, not worth the money. Don't really feel like he's worth the money. Definitely could keep him for Brighton. I think that's a good fixture for him, and I wouldn't be unhappy to keep him. And I feel like that's kind of what I could say every single week. It's just that he's a good player and they've got a decent run of fixtures. So unless they're playing somebody absolutely brutal, you could still take him. But he's obviously the cash cow for a lot of people to get to players they don't have. I'm in a fortunate position of already having Ekatike, but yeah, there's obviously a lot of transfers to be made. When you have guys who are scoring at this rate, like you got to get them in. So
yeah, we got to be flexible right now is the big thing. Just worth iterating that it's 7:01 p.m. our time and the prices change in like 30 minutes. So I think our co-host who's MIA and I already locked in our transfers and we're trying to get to the transfers before Luke loses value. So how do you want to do? I can show my transfers real quickly, or we can just
why don't you do that? I'll double check prices right now. Why don't you go ahead and share yours?
Okay, so off the back of this week, I had Bruno and I had Thiago, both of which have been kind of dogs, and so I just went exact money. I actually think I have 0.1 in the bank, so I'm a liar. I went for Rogers and Ekatike. I think in an ideal state, I would have addressed. There was another scenario where I would have addressed Dewsbury Hall and Bruno at the same time by transferring both Rogers and Cunha in for Bruno and Dewsbury Hall. But to do that, I would have had to bring in Calafiori. and dropping Timber down for a -4. So I chose to capitalize on, with no hit, capitalize on the Ekatike Wolves fixture because of that Isak injury. I think Ekatike's looked great. I'm less enthused about Rodgers, but his fixtures get pretty solid within a couple weeks. So I think he's a guy I might just bring in and sit on, even if the goals suddenly evaporate because I brought him in.
Yeah, that's super true with the Villa fixtures. So the next two, they have Chelsea and then Arsenal. And so if you look at them now, I think they're literally at the bottom of the fixture ticker. And then if you just like adjust that timeline to after those two games, they go directly to the top. So
yeah. And so I brought up this graph right here, which shows the fixture swings. And so in 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, they have fairly difficult fixtures. Right now, we're obviously hitting what was this? This was 18, 17? This was 17.
This was just
So,
17.
not an ideal time to bring in Rodgers. I was hoping to bring him in later because they got Chelsea, Arsenal, Forest, Crystal Palace. Not great. But, then starting in 22, the fixtures get pretty fantastic. So I'm just banking on the fact that I brought him in early. Hopefully Villa doesn't hurt me for the second time this season since I started with a bunch of them.
And I do think looking at those a little more individually, you have Chelsea who didn't have just conceded a couple goals to Newcastle, weren't very defensively sound there. Obviously, Arsenal is always a tough one. And then you have Forest that is generally a good fixture. And then Palace that they're playing a little bit of this Jekyll and Hyde this season, where a lot of the time they are relatively locked down, but when they falter a lot. Yes,
I mean, it's the wheels falling off.
It's
like
the
I've been
fatigue
saying all
for
season.
sure.
It's like when that fatigue hits, there's games where they're going to come out of sorts and they're going to get pumped because no team in the Prem is bad, barring like Wolves. So
so I think Rodgers is definitely like a fair pick to go for a little early. And to the point we talked about last week of form versus fixtures, like, I mean, he just scored 4 goals in 2 games. So definitely somebody worth keeping your eye on.
I mean, I'm not happy to have brought him in this week. I wasn't planning on it. To be honest, what I would rather address is my backline because I think Tarkowski has just been a pain in my ass. I would love to drop him down to like a Keane and then bring Anderson up to a City defender and potentially even address Chow. So those were my plans when I made my AFCON transfers, was to roll for the next 3 weeks and then address my backline. But just given both the Dewsbury Hall and the Bruno injury, I had to kind of readapt. So we took out Thiago, we brought in Rodgers and Ekatike, got rid of Bruno, and hopefully we'll just capitalize on some of the fixtures coming up.
And Tarko and Anderson have really good fixtures this week, so I don't think there's a rush there. But how much do you have in the bank coming out of this, out of curiosity?
Coming out of this, I have 0 in the bank. But that's not really a problem because I addressed the guys that were going to plague me most.
Right.
So next week, if I wanted to, I could get rid of Osaka and bring in like Acuna, or if I drop Tarkowski down next week, that frees up a lot of money. So I felt like this was a good way to get ahead of the curve. I'm not going to be punished with the Ekatike. I now have Rodgers. I feel like the only guy who could really hurt me in a big way this upcoming week is probably Acuna.
Yeah. They're playing Newcastle this week. I feel like the Cunha conversation is a very real one. There's 2 schools of thought coming out of that. Obviously, Manchester United have lost a ton of their attack. You lose Ahmad, you lose Bumo, and now you lose Bruno Fernandes. So either Cunha picks up all the slack and is just the guy, to be fair, in the second half of that Villa game, went without Bruno, a lot of the chances went his way. Or on the whole, United's attack struggles. It's also worth noting that there's some pretty strong links between Semenyo and both United and City. So it's possible that he comes in there, and who knows how that shakes things up. But so I don't think Cunha is a priority transfer in this week when they're playing Newcastle's. So I'm not super worried about that. But definitely some will be a talking point going into the Wolves fixture.
I'd most like to have him next week. When I was looking at the reason I decided not to do Cunha this week was because I could have gone Fernandes to Cunha, right? And then not done anything with Ekatike, but I could have addressed maybe Bruno G, because I could have brought Bruno G out and then brought in a Rodgers, so just done Cunha and Rodgers. It was just simply the fact that Ekatike is playing Wolves next week, and I feel like that is one of those games where I will drop 100,000 ranks if Ekatike gets a goal. Yeah. So I figured I could address Cunha next week ahead of their Wolves fixture rather than this week.
Ekatike also just feels that much more nailed with Isak going down. It just feels like a player who's like, okay, you can finally trust who's going to start in this Liverpool attack, and he's been a consistent goal scorer. So And you can keep him for a while. He has the Arsenal fixture in like 4 weeks. So that's probably when you'd maybe look to sell, or you could just bench him. But yeah, he's got some good fixtures for a while. So I think that was smart. On Bruno G really quickly, something I was looking at is, again, this is starting this week, Manchester United and on is when the great fixtures for Newcastle really start. But I was realizing I wonder if in one of those graphs that you have of the rotation, it looks like they transition really nicely into Chelsea. I'm not sure if they have that on here. Chelsea and Newcastle.
About fifth from the bottom.
Yeah. So like that switch is so nice. And you could even go a week earlier than that at 22 if you wanted to. But regardless, like if you stick with the Bruno G and then he goes directly into somebody like an Enzo, if you're looking to move that on later on. So as much as I have been talking about having an itchy trigger finger with him, I don't think he's all that. At the same time, like he's serving his purpose and he's going to go into some nice fixtures. So I don't feel like he's as much of a priority as some of the other players, obviously.
That's kind of exactly where I ended today. Like if I hadn't made the transfers I had, I would have Guehi, an injured Dewsbury Hall, and an injured Fernandez on my bench, meaning I have no bench. So, I said, all right, I would like to get Bruno G out because when I brought him in, he was overperforming. He got me a couple returns. That was great. Now let's get that before it starts to stink, becomes a little stale. But at the end of the day, he's got some great fixtures coming up, and I had to address the bigger issues. So that's where we are. And, if I bring in a Chelsea player in the next couple of weeks, which I plan to, then, that problem kind of solves itself. But all right, 100%. That's enough about me. We know we're on the clock here, Luke. Let's get into your transfer decisions. Then we can take a deep breath and relax.
Sure. You have one free going into next week. Is that right?
No, I have 0 frees. So I could have taken a hit this week, but I opted not to.
Okay. All right, let's do this. Nope, wrong thing. Sorry. Here we go.
All right. So this is your current team.
I've got no, so I have 2 transfers, 0.3 in the bank. Haven't done anything yet. So just looking at like what this team could be if I rolled, it's pretty solid. Like I think Thiago versus Bournemouth is a good fixture. The player's obviously not in form, so that's the issue, but I don't mind the fixture at all. I really don't mind any fixture here. Like this is a really, really solid lineup. And so the plan on paper was to roll here. I don't think there's anything wrong. And I certainly think I could get myself up to 3 frees and just because I don't have to deal with some of the injuries that other folks have. It's a pretty solid spot to be in. So
it really is. I like the back line a lot. Honestly, the mid's pretty good too. Nice balance. I mean, it's a good team.
So that's still like on the table, to be honest. But the more I'm looking at Thiago, as much as we've talked about the fixtures being good, obviously he's really struggled, and not only has he not scored, but he wasn't involved. I was watching a lot of that Brentford game this weekend, and he's just done nothing. So the fixtures going forward, the next 3 are nice. Bournemouth, Tottenham, and Everton is really solid, but it's not like the best run. And I think so. Looking at some different options, obviously I could go down to DCL, who is scoring at such an unbelievable rate. It honestly might be worthwhile. Obviously the fixtures are tough, but go ahead.
I don't understand DCL because he has been a good player and he's just in the last couple seasons mostly battled injuries. Like the fact that he's returned in these quantities with arguably some of the worst fixtures is ridiculous.
Really incredible.
And he was just doing nothing when he had great runs of fixtures earlier. So I just don't understand where to step.
City, Chelsea, Liverpool, Brentford, Palace. So he's returning against some of the best defenses in the league.
Yeah, but if you scroll down to some of his earlier games, he wasn't returning against some of the worst in the league. So I don't understand where this is. This
just hot. It's just the hot hand right now.
Right.
Yeah. So definitely an option, but I think maybe where you're leading is where my head's at of I'm dubious of this being good long term. Although Sharp would definitely ride the hot hand, and he's been doing that all year very well. So it's tough to fully pass up on this, but my alternative in the forward sense to get rid of Thiago is to go to Bowen. And so I know we've talked a little bit about this offline. My thought process is West Ham poopy. We know that, but we also know that Nuno last season with Forrest, like his whole thing was kind of feeding Chris Wood, and it looks like that is kind of how they're operating, is trying to get the ball to Bowen. In the City game, he got a lot of chances, top of the box, inside the box. I think ultimately it's, do you trust West Ham to be good enough offensively? And that's the tough part.
I do not. So
Yeah.
I am advocating against this move.
Yeah.
What, out of my curiosity, what other moves were you looking in addition to Bowen? Because I think that'll influence my decision more than just saying Bowen is a good or bad pick.
Yeah. So I was thinking Bowen and then either Rice or Rogers. So if I go Rogers, to the point that you just made about going early, definitely I'm going early. But it leaves me 2.3 in the bank. So what I can do with that money is either wait until Gabriel comes back. So let's say that's in a week or two. I could do like Rodon straight to Gabriel. And then I have triple Arsenal defense, which I think would be a nice differential to have, and obviously the best defense in the league going forward. So that's an option. Or let's see, reset. Or I could do Saka down to Rice and just get on that early. And if I do Bowen again, then that gives me basically the exact money to go Dewsbury Hall up to Rogers when his fixtures turn nicely. So I have 0.2 in the bank to make all three of those moves. When I just did the Gabrielle version of this, I would have exact money. Or maybe I had 0.1. So I don't have to go early on this. I know we have 15 minutes before price changes, so I don't have to, but Rogers is projected to rise. I did already lose 0.2 on this potential Thiago to Bowen last night, which is tough. But I guess the thought process is, when money is this tight, I don't want to price myself out of later moves by not, going for this. The flip side of that is Fulham still have yet to play. So if Wilson gets an injury or something, that would obviously really change my plans. Yeah. So anyway, that's the thought process. Again, I could still roll as well. So the Bowen move doesn't need to happen. It's not that it necessarily helps me afford anything right now. My thought process is just really quality player, really, really good fixtures for a while. They're the top of the fixture ticker for a good while, and his underlying numbers have really been upticking as well as of late. He's returned in 3 of the last 4 games and is obviously having a good amount of XG. So that's the thought process, but I don't have to get rid of Thiago. I just kind of feel like he's doing really poorly, and so I feel like I have the opportunity to fill that position with somebody who either is scoring or I think might score next. I think with the Bowen one, my thought process is I'm getting ahead of potentially somebody who could pop off, as opposed to going for somebody like a DCL where it's like points chasing, if you will, of they have been doing well, but maybe I've already missed the boat. Yeah.
No, I like it. I guess the thing that comes to question with this sort of Bowen move is, do you really want that much money up front again? And you might. Like, I think that, excuse me, I was watching this game, and I mean, City just wiped the floor with West Ham. I thought West Ham looked atrocious. Bowen had a couple chances, but most of them were like, oh, he gets the ball and shoots it generally in the direction of the goal. They're not really chances. But I'm not going to say that's an indictment on Bowen, because, City just finally, for the first time in honestly a couple of years, or at least this year, looked like a City of old.
Right.
Where it looked like, they were sharks. It looked like every single player could have gotten a hattie. Ryan God was amazing. Cherky was amazing. Holland was amazing. So it was a great City team. I thought Guardiola could have gotten 2 headers. Ruben Diaz could have gotten a header goal. So it was just such a dominant performance by City that I'm not sure I could make like an indictment on Bowen. My only concern is just that, watching that, I don't even think West Ham got out of their own half in the first half, right? And that was a little bit concerning. So, it's a lot of money to stick up front for someone who's ultimately your third forward. And I think the other thing is that it leaves your backline looking a little weak. But, beyond that, I don't think it was that bad. So it's just kind of a question of, what are you thinking on that? Are you fine with the structural compromises that you'll have to make? Are you fine keeping Rodon and Chow and Richards because Crystal Palace just got pumped, and then potentially not having the flexibility to get a Chelsea defender in a couple weeks, or
So
do you
hang on,
want to capitalize
let's
and roll?
talk about this really quick because I don't think I have the inflexibility that you're talking about. So if I go Bowen and then either Rice or
Mhm.
Rogers, whatever, I still have 2.3 in the bank. So it's not like I don't think Bowen comes at the sacrifice of anybody else that I would want. Like I can go upgrade my backline with this money. Like I was saying, I could take this directly from Rodon up to a Gabrielle if I wanted to upgrade the backline.
Yeah,
If I wanted to upgrade the mids, I could upgrade Dewsbury Hall or I could upgrade Wilson back to another United mid or something like that.
yeah.
So it does
No,
still
I agree.
save me the money. Like I don't think from a money perspective it's screwing me over because I'm selling Saka. Like I have no premium in the mids at the moment, right? The closest thing I have to that is Foden. I think that's kind of what other people are doing too. If there's like a meta shift right now, it's getting away from the midfield premiums. But point being, no, I don't think it like leaves me in a place where I can't make moves other places. I think your concerns about West Ham on the whole are super fair. Of like just not being that good of a team and not being able to get the ball where they need to. So I think like that is also my concern. It's kind of taking a bet on that and hoping, but honestly, like that's also where my thought process is like, all right, is it just that this team is going to, the form or fixtures breed form in that sense, and they'll come alive with some of these really good fixtures coming up, or is it just kind of I'm being hopeful on a team that's pretty ass,
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Like Bowen is a pick who won't hurt you if you have him, right? Because you're not going to lose points if he doesn't lose a ton of rank if he doesn't score,
Right.
because that's your third forward slot. I
Right.
guess what it really, if we're talking about your game specifically, and it seems like you're probably just trying to climb rank relatively rapidly, I guess it would be who are you missing out on? The people that I don't see in your team as a result of bringing in Bowen are some Man United player, probably Cunha.
Yeah.
Um, potentially Semenyo, although there's an uncertainty of whether he's going to move or not. And then you don't have Rogers, so the Villa player. Beyond that, I don't know if there's like a ton of players you're really missing. Woltemade maybe, but with the Wissa uncertainty,
Yeah, I'm
like
not
again,
doing
I'm not
that.
sure if
Yeah.
I'd go there.
Yeah.
And he's kind of expensive. So, like, just to be clear, I don't think Bowen's a bad pick. I'm just saying, watching the Man City game, I thought West Ham looked
Bad.
terrible.
I that part I definitely agree with. I think I can cover off with that's the thing. That's why this is so enticing to me, is because I'm like, because I'm downgrading Saka, I have enough money to make any move I want after this,
Mhm.
even with these moves. So like you just said, Cunha, maybe next week against Wolves, I want to get him. I have exact money to do that right now. Obviously, I have to make that move. But
Yeah, but he's going to rise, right?
yeah. Yeah, good point. Good point. Um yeah, so maybe I'm priced out of that. But no, really like the motivation here, because again, I could roll. The motivation is more so just that I want to get rid of Tiago, and I'm trying to figure out who that is. That it really could be DCL. It could be that I just, to your point, leave the structure as is, leave a Saka in there for a second, and drop down to DCL and then use the money elsewhere and just continue to upgrade the squad. But I feel like with Bruno getting injured, there's not really anybody expensive who I feel like I need, right? There's
No, I
Saka, I
agree.
don't really care. Bruno, not there. Palmer is like unreliable in terms of minutes. I already have Ekatike, so he's probably as pricey as I would go in that position. So I feel like from a money perspective, I'm okay. So yeah, it's really just like who's the best option to replace Thiago with. That's my only reasoning for going with someone like a Bowen. And I think if there are better arguments to be made of like a different option there, I'm here to hear it. I just don't see all that many.
Yeah, no,
Or
I
if it
agree.
was like take it down and reinvest that money in the midfield, but I don't know where that would go.
It's getting weird because a lot of the defenders are injured and now a lot of the midfielders are injured. So all of a sudden, we like 2 weeks ago, we're all like, "Oh shit, we got to get out of the forwards because it's clearly a midfield meta." And now it's like, "Oh shit, we
Right.
got to get out of the midfielders because it's a forward meta." Um, I will say I personally liked the team you just flashed with the Cunha Rice Bowen for the hit over the Rogers Bowen for no hit team, and that is only because Manchester United plays Wolves next week, and you're going to be priced out of Cunha if he rises tonight.
But like you think go Cunha early for him to play Newcastle versus just leave Harry Wilson in who's playing West Ham?
I think it's go Cunha early for him to play Newcastle, who are missing both of their left backs, and Dan Burn and Trippier, and like they were talking about potentially playing their backup goalkeeper as a right back. Instead, they played Lewis Miley there. Like I know Newcastle is a good team on paper, but I think we've seen earlier in the season that when Newcastle defense gets injured, and specifically their outside backs, that causes the offense and the defense to stop functioning.
Yeah.
And so I think if you're looking at like a pure fixture ticker, say that 5 times fast right now, Newcastle probably aren't as good as we thought they are. And I was watching the game today, and I tweeted about 20 minutes in, like, Cunha and Rogers look really involved. Cunha scored, Rogers scored. Admittedly, they were both really good finishes on a lot of bad chances, but I think that's just kind of what you would expect from two teams towards the upper end of the table. And if I had to pick, like, I don't think the Rogers fixtures coming up are as good as the Cunha fixtures coming up. And I think Rogers is going to be easier to get back into as opposed to Cunha, who's 7.9 and now the standout attacker for Manchester United versus Cunha, or excuse me, Rogers, who's going to be 7.1.
Yeah, I just don't know if I want to do that for a hit. Like, I don't think.
Well, I guess
Wilson
it's just a
to Cunha
question
for a
of like,
hit.
are you going to want Cunha in next week, or are you just down to not get him?
Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily like. I think that's where I'm at. Is that I'm like, I don't know if I trust Manchester United without any of their attackers yet, and I'm willing to take that on and see that happen. Like, see Cunha be good that before running for it. Obviously, this Newcastle game is a great like tester, and I don't feel like I necessarily need to have him in for Newcastle. I hear you on them. Newcastle being poor defensively. Unfortunately, I've been the
For the
recipient of
record,
that.
I skipped the Cunha thing for a hit for the same reason. So I did not
Yeah.
bring him in over Rogers. I'm not necessarily saying you have to do that. I'm just saying that if he rises, you don't have anything in the bank, it might be a little tricky to pick him up.
Yeah,
Because I was watching the game, and from the eye test, he was involved in everything. He was
Definitely
trying
was.
to take on. He was in the box. Sesko was making some great runs, and he was like playing like a striker, but he just really couldn't finish. And then it kept turning into like Cunha is playing striker. Cunha is playing striker.
Definitely true. So I think with 6 minutes ago, the main thing that I need to figure out right now, because I don't have to make these moves if I don't go for Rogers. He's the player that's rising. Is really like, forget about the Bowen thing for a second. It's really just if I'm taking Saka down, do I go to Rogers a little early and go that route, or do I go Rice? The only reason not to go Rice is that it takes up my third Arsenal spot. So if I wanted to do Gabriel in a couple weeks, as opposed to like being able to upgrade a Rodon to him, I'd have to probably do Timber directly to Gabriel, which feels like a weird use of a transfer. So the options are, right, if you go the Rogers now, then I have Rogers for a couple weeks. I'm able to bench him next week against Arsenal and play forward the back. And then later on, I can bring in Gabriel here.
I like the thinking, but do we have a confirmed timeline for the Gabriel return?
We don't. They just said that he's like been ramping up quite a bit, but you know how Arteta is. He could fully be lying.
He's just a liar. Yeah.
Like he made it seem like there was a chance he could have played this past weekend, but you're totally right on that. So the other option, right, is to go Rice and remove and just have him for the next couple, and then plan to bring in Rogers in a couple weeks when his fixtures turn. So I think that makes like this safe
it's
sense.
Not even like the Arsenal fixtures are good right now. Like, instead of going Rice, have you considered just going Rogers and Cunha?
Because so I think that's what we were just talking about, right? That's a hit.
But I'm saying instead of bringing in Bowen at all, because I know Thiago hasn't been the guy, but in my mind, I think instead of bringing in Ekitike for Thiago, would have rather brought in Ekitike for Gui, who I have on my bench. And then I think that this team provides you a lot more affordability in terms of week-to-week rotation than you get from having a injured Dewsbury Hall in that spot.
Sure.
Like, I'm not sure that Bowen at the expense of both Rogers and Cunha is worth the trade up from Thiago.
Yeah,
because Thiago's on pens. You know, Thiago could luck into a lucky penalty at any point. You could play him against the odd game week, right? He's a third striker for you, and that's kind of the ideal spot to have a third striker who's only 6.6 mil on pens in your third spot behind a Wolves playing Ekitike and Haaland.
I hear you. I just don't like these fit. Like, I don't think this makes sense to do Rodgers and Cunha in this week versus Chelsea and Newcastle, as opposed to just leaving the team I have then, right? Like,
yeah. No, I mean, and it's just such a bummer that we're looking at prices right now. Okay, well, I mean, we've tried to rapid fire give you as much information as we can, but ultimately you're gonna have to pull the trigger in about the next 2 minutes. So what are you thinking?
It's really just the Rodgers thing. So I don't have to make it if I don't. Basically the question is, how priority is Rodgers right now? That's really the question.
So let's look at those Villa fixtures real quick. So Aston Villa is at the bottom of the fixture ticker. In 20, they play Forest, Crystal Palace, Everton, Newcastle, Brentford, Bournemouth, Brighton. I don't think that is as enticing as Man United, who play Newcastle, Wolves, Leeds, Burnley. So from 19 through 21, you're looking at a Wolves, Leeds, Burnley run, which is 3 of the bottom 4 teams.
Yeah.
So
if we personally, I would go Rodgers over Cunha. If that's the question, I'm going Rodgers over Cunha. That's me.
All right. Well, then I think that's your answer. You're locked in on Bowen.
It's really just Rodgers versus Rice for me. That's the question.
Right. Then I think it would probably be Rodgers, because you said you wanted to leave the opportunity open to bring Gabriel back in later. I need to get like that
Arsenal.
What's the not minute to win it, like the music going, like we need like a countdown and like the drums going with 1 minute left on the clock. Luke is trying to confirm his decisions.
Bowen just rose, so we don't have to worry about that.
You said Bowen just rose?
Last night.
Both Rodgers and Cunha are rising tonight.
Bournemouth, Liverpool. Fuck. This is just going to be one of those things. I'm going to miss it.
This is where Sharp would say, stop thinking about it so much and just do what your heart says. You know,
don't like, my heart doesn't say Rodgers is the funny thing. Like, it really doesn't.
See, the reason I brought in Rodgers this week is because I was going to get priced out of him, and next week I can bring in Cunha versus Wolves and have him for the next 3 at the expense of Saka, potentially with a hit. But I think that'll be good for the next games. I also don't think that Newcastle is as strong. Keep in mind, he's 3, 5, 8, 9, like pretty good returns in the last couple. I guess the only question is Fernandes going to really hamper that team? But I thought Fernandes was playing pretty deep. He was pretty involved. He was making good runs, good passes. But Ugarte was playing.
I missed it.
You missed it?
Yeah. It's already. I might have 10 more seconds, but I don't know. Because I'm so unsure. I don't want to just rush this. TBH. I think we just overcooked it.
All right.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I'll probably still make some moves in some fashion. But yeah, I just want more time to think about it, TBH, because I'm definitely not sold on Cunha. I don't think I'm also sold on Rodgers, is the funny thing.
No, I'm not either. I think he's been massively overperforming.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna keep. Yeah, sorry,
that was big. You're gonna look at this for the next 2 days and then pick the wrong one.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Well, where do we want to go from here now? We can actually take a breath and breathe.
Yeah. That's a good question.
Review some games.
Yeah, I suppose. I guess we can talk about the United one really briefly. The United Villa game. Obviously, that's fresh on the mind. Happened today. So yeah, Rodgers scores a couple of absolute worldies from some pretty small XG chances. Cunha also obviously scores right at the right before the halftime whistle. And then like you said, like I'd be really curious to see. I wish each one of these steps was labeled, because I feel like a couple of these definitely are Cunha in the second half. So who knows? I think one of these earlier ones is Bruno as well. So
yeah. So from watching that game, it was weird because in like the first 25 minutes, it was like definitely Cunha and Rodgers getting all the touches. You know, Sesko was in there for United a little bit, but he just couldn't finish. And I don't know how much of that is just the Emi Martinez effect. But what I noticed was that just all of the shots were really low quality. They were all top of the box, right? Like just kind of a shot at a goal, but not necessarily on target or right at the goalkeeper if it was on target. And then both of them just buried like 2 shots within 2 minutes right before halftime. But I felt that those were more good finishes. But at the same time, then I was like, okay, but these players are also both really, really, really involved. So like how much of this is just because these are 2 relatively good teams that we are expecting to finish in probably the top 6 this year.
Yeah.
So I didn't really have a conclusion. It was just that Rodgers and Cunha were clearly the guys. I was afraid that Cunha would
Right.
look really bad having almost no service because of Mbuma leaving. But in reality, I thought that Cunha's always been a selfish player and has like deserved or wanted more of the ball. And I felt like he stepped up when asked. My new fear is just that with the Bruno injury, is Cunha going to be? Are they going to be able to work that ball up the field? Because now they're going to have to play Casemiro and Ugarte. And Ugarte looked really bad when I was like watching him in the game today.
Yeah.
He could not make a forward pass at all.
I think the question is also like how quickly might these other United players return, right? Like I think we've seen throughout the year if Bumo's back, Cunha is obviously a little bit less of a threat. Bumo seems like the better way to invest your money, I should say. But we also don't really know what this team looks like without Bruno Fernandes, just in general. So,
yeah,
we'll Manchester United is definitely an interesting one, kind of a wait and see. But when they start playing Wolves, if there's somebody that you've identified as like the guy in this sense, Cunha, then that's probably a good time to go.
Yeah, I was watching. I gave it the eye test, right, and the eye test was just that they were both involved. It's just a question of how repeatable you think those finishes are.
Yeah, and along the lines of the Rodgers stuff, we can look at this Chelsea game a little bit of just seeing like what this could look like for them next week. Chelsea lets in a huge amount of chances, a couple of big ones to Voltemade early on, and then kind of locks it down in the second half. This is a little uncharacteristic for Chelsea. They've been keeping cleans a lot lately. Does this keep you from being interested in their defense at all, seeing something like this, or do you feel like this is just more of a blip?
I feel like with Chelsea, it's more of a blip. Like I feel like they're a team that's like rarely exciting or rarely looks like a team that will dominate or like win the Prem because they're just head and shoulders above everybody else. But then they just like do it anyways, and I'm always confused. What it did give me a little hope was like, why was Newcastle still able to generate a significant amount of attack with the injuries that they sustained? Because historically, when their outside backs get injured, their attack falls apart and their defense falls apart.
Sure.
But Newcastle not only took it to Chelsea, but had like a significantly higher XG than Chelsea.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to watch that game back a little bit because I didn't see this one live. I don't know if you did and can have like a little bit of eye test perspective, but that's probably my biggest question. And then it still leaves me scared to go Woltemade because Wissett came back and has been looking okay.
He came in at like 70 minutes. Yeah, I think unfortunately, like it sucks to watch him score a couple, but it's kind of like, and again, maybe this is a bad example because he turned out to be the guy, but it kind of reminds me of like early season Ekitike or like mid-season Ekitike, I guess, where it's like he'd score and then get pulled off at 60 and you're like, okay, so sick, but like, is he actually the guy?
Mm-hmm.
Tricky stuff. What of these other games do we really care about? I mean, I think it's just worth talking about like the reason why I'm so eager to get away from Thiago is a couple of goals from a defender, but I mean, just an absolutely nothing first half in this game against Wolves, where you'd like to see Brentford being like really quality attacking.
Yeah. I mean, I watched this game and he was not involved. I've like there was
at all. I forgot he was there.
He didn't even touch the ball. Like it was interesting because he would like Brentford would be generating like a quite sophisticated and intricate attack, and I'd be like, "Damn, Brentford, get it! Like you guys look pretty solid right now." And then I'd be like, surely Thiago's going to be in this somewhere. Like this was a rare opportunity where I was actually able to watch like 90% of the games this weekend. Yeah. And so like I was like looking at him with like a critical eye, and I was just like, I'm looking for it. I respect you a lot, Thiago. Like, let's get it. And then he would just be not involved in the play at all.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what's happening here? Like, how is it possible for Brentford to be like putting up like relatively decent attacks and then him just not be involved? And at the same time, when I say relatively decent attacks for Brentford, I didn't think that they looked amazing.
No.
Like these are 2 low XG chances that some freaking goober capitalized on the team of the week somehow, some profit. But like I mean, I didn't think that they looked like they were crushing Wolves like they should have, and I
No,
think that the XG numbers makes it look like Wolves really took it to them, but I don't think they did that either. Like
right.
Wolves still looked like definitely getting
Shit.
relegated
Yeah.
Wolves, and
That's the
Brentford
thing.
didn't
Like
look great.
basically every team in the Prem should be beating up on Wolves right now. That's arguably the best fixture. I do think the best fixture is still Burnley. I mean, this Bournemouth game, I think it's worth talking about. Like, look at that. um, so Semenyo does score. Obviously, all of the discourse that we had last week about potentially the output distributing among the team from a returns perspective doesn't show, right? You see Semenyo score the goal. I'm sure he got full bonus, but this was go watch the highlights of this one. It's so funny just to watch them teeing off. I mean, they just teed off on Bournemouth or on Burnley the entire game. It was like Burnley played that low block, so it gave Bournemouth the opportunity at the top of the box for every one of their players to take a shot. Kluivert had a couple. Brooks had a couple. Semenyo had a couple. Like it could have been any one of them that returned. To be honest with you, and the goal that ultimately went in was like a turnover right outside of the box that Semenyo capitalized on, or like a failed clearance. So not to say anything against going Semenyo or something like that, but just more so along the lines of like I do still think the distribution of output is there, and this just it happened to go
No,
Semenyo's way.
I mean, I would say that there's now even stronger of an argument to go against Semenyo, to be honest,
Yeah,
because I think like when you look at a team like Burnley who does the low block, and this has been a criticism of some of like the recent Tottenham managers that I've had, it's just like when you invite this pressure over and over, it's like little waves and slowly they'll like weather at you, and eventually one just gets through and
right,
breaks down the wall, right?
right,
Because there's enough quality within the Premier League that like these guys are good players, and if you just let them shoot over and over and over and over again, like eventually one is going to come in.
right,
And that's just like we were saying last week, like yes, Semenyo might score against Burnley because Burnley are bad next week, but then I think just the fixtures get really terrible, and there's uncertainty of whether like is Semenyo going to move to Manchester City and immediately start? Because if he moves to City, Pep has this thing where he like doesn't play someone who moves there for like a year,
right,
or like if he moves to United, he might start, but like Bruno's injured, so how is that going to impact them? And like what's that going to do to Cunha, right? And like even just looking at the stats, it was 16 shots for Bournemouth against Burnley's 4, 3 big chances versus Burnley's 1.
right.
So I mean, you're right. Burnley is really bad. It's probably one of the premier matchups to target, but like I don't know. Semenyo just has really, really bad fixtures coming up. Just to reiterate, it's who even is it?
Well, and not only that, it could be irrelevant because he's sounds like it's pretty likely he's going to move. So
I mean, it's positive he's going to move, right? It's between City or United. He's had
right,
suitors all season. He's playing well. He deserves it. He's not going to AFCON. But is he going to move and then immediately start? If he moves and he goes to City, what does that look like? If he moves and he goes to United, what does that look like? We just don't
right,
know.
right. Sorry to touch on it, but I honestly think like as a Tottenham fan, I feel like there are a lot of positives to take out of this game. And the reason I say
Do
that
you?
is,
Do you?
yeah, the reason I say that is because you have 2 red cards, right? And you still put up a solid fight against this team. Like obviously the 2 reds, like that's if you have a red in a game or as early as it was, that's just a scheduled loss, right? So the fact that they were even able to fight back with 2 reds, let alone one, like I think one shows the problems that Liverpool have, but also just showed some like solidity from a Tottenham perspective. So I don't know. I don't think you can be too upset with this one in the sense of what they were able to do with what they have. And I mean, look at this. Obviously, Ekatike returns, so it feels like a win as an owner, but they limited Liverpool to half an XG.
So I brought in Ekatike this week, but my genuine concern with doing that was like Ekatike only scored the second goal against a Tottenham that had 9 men for a
Right,
majority of the game, or not majority, sorry, 10 men for a majority of the game.
right.
And I don't know. As a Spurs fan, I've been trying to be like very pro Frank and be like give him time, but this was kind of the performance that really, really, really upset me. Like watching
Hmm.
this one, it was just like undisciplined. We didn't have a lot of like stuff like attacking might going forward. You can see that
Yeah.
flat line on the Tottenham XG from the 30th minute to the 60th minute. Like, it was a really frustrating game. And I was a little concerned that Katike and Liverpool is more generally as a whole just didn't like dominate Spurs because I thought that they should have. I predicted last week that it would be 3-0 Liverpool, and then they got a red card. And it's like, oh yeah, this is actually going to come true, and then it didn't.
I think along
But
the lines of what we were talking about with United too, you start to worry about some of the attackers missing, right? You obviously lose Salah. Now you lose Szoboszlai for a game because he's got he's a suspension, and then Isak is probably going to be out for a while. Obviously, the Isak thing is good for Ekitike's minutes, but you start to wonder, like, what is the productivity coming from Wirtz? Because we've seen that that's not the case.
Yeah, he did not look amazing in this game either. Kirk has looked really bad. I cannot believe that Sharp was arguing for him last week in the combined 11. Even the commentators were roasting him like in the game. They're like, "Wow, this guy gets into great positions and then just absolutely wastes it." And like they were just shitting on him mid game, and that's how you know it's a sign of a bad player. I mean, he's not a bad player, but it's just I'm worried that I brought in Ekitike because it didn't feel like a high functioning offense considering how upset I was when Spurs lost this game.
Right.
And like, yes, there's positive that there's like a fight, but now Romero's suspended next game because he got the yellow. And I think that means Xavi for getting a straight red is probably suspended for the next 3. What else happened? There was like another suspension. I think Bentancur might have gotten his 5th yellow, might also be suspended. So who plays Spurs next week? Because they might beat Spurs by about 1 million.
I'm not sure. Let's see. I don't know. I can just go to fixtures. Let's see. Spurs next week.
Crystal Palace.
Yeah.
So maybe just if you have your free hit remaining,
get Mateta.
Triple up on the Palace guys, because I'm a little worried. Like, Spurs have not been generating a ton of offensive output. Spurs were undisciplined. Spurs got shit on. And then if we want to talk about assets that we actually care about, I'm also equally worried that Liverpool didn't completely just dominate Spurs once they were down to 9 men for most of the game.
For sure. I think that's the concerning thing, for sure. So the Ekitike hype is coming from a place of, okay, we can get his minutes now, and he's scored a lot. So I think it's honestly similar to the Rodgers logic, where it's like, this isn't a team. I guess Aston Villa is like on the table doing better, but still it's like a team that struggles offensively, but you're going for the player who has the form. Whereas, yeah, I don't know. I think that is tricky. And I don't necessarily think that Ekitike is a slam dunk pick. Obviously, I'm happy because I had him and he returned. But to your point, like, they should have been a lot more dominant in that game than they were. So
yep. And I was happy to go with him playing Wolves next week because I had exact money and it enabled Rodgers and I didn't have to take a hit and I was able to get rid of Thiago. So for a lot of reasons, it felt like in the context of my team specifically, a good move. But I'm not sure that like Ekitike is having that purple patch or riding the hot hand, so to speak, is if we want to use phrases that really annoy me, but I say anyways. Like, I don't know. I was a little worried coming out of that game for both teams.
Yeah. I mean, we can touch on this one really quick. Crystal Palace leads.
What the fuck happened here? Oh my god, dude! Having this Spurs game and then having Guehi start and get a yellow and then concede 4 goals. I mean, I was depressed for like literal hours after the sequence of events. I was like having a good weekend. I was like, oh yeah, Haaland bagged, triple captains going successfully. And it's like, oh, turns out that's the only positive you get. And for our time, that was like 10 a.m. So I was like, oh, good, my weekend gets ruined at like 11 a.m.
Yeah, tough one. I don't think there's a whole lot to say here. I think I guess it begs the question, like, is it time to divest from some of your Palace assets? But they've done this multiple times this year where they do this and then they bounce back with a clean sheet, so, or Guehi scores a goal or something.
Tottenham next week. Tottenham fixes everyone. Liverpool fix them. Right. Wolves give them their only 1 of 2 points the entire season. Like, don't worry, my team's spectacular at disappointing me. So no, I mean, like, sorry, to memes aside though, you brought up like divesting from the Palace assets. Like, yes, I think you could. I have a Guehi and I'm happy to keep him because I think they're one of the better defenses. But I mean, was this just a Leeds were turned up this week,
dude,
or was it like a Palace just are really suffering?
I don't know if I'd like to think, but I lean towards the latter. I don't know the answer, and I'm sure it's probably a little bit of both. But I mean, this has happened multiple times with Palace, so I think it's just you've got to be prepared that on the odd weekend this is going to happen, and that's just kind of the way it is. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's tough. And I think from a Guehi perspective as well, like, the positive is that he's such a threat from set pieces. Somebody like myself that owns a Richards, I think it's tough because you really are relying on the clean sheet. Obviously, he gets DEFCON, but like you're very heavily relying on the clean sheet. He at least has some attacking threat. So yeah, interesting times. They're just clearly very injured as well, just like a very injured team. We talked about this so much, so it is what it is. All right, Arsenal Everton. how funny that Gyökeres took the penalty. How funny. Like,
supposedly, if we're like
so
really
classic.
reaching for rumors, that's because apparently Pickford would have seen Saka take a million pens in England training. But like,
so he knows his strat.
Yes, but I don't know how much I believe that. How much of that is just Arsenal and like general
Right.
FPL manager cope. I mean, I think it is known that they like to rotate pens, right? So like, I think it's entirely possible that we're both going to transfer Saka out and they're going to get a pen next week, and then
he'll take it. Yeah, 100%.
Take it.
He's definitely still in the mix. Like, it's not like, oh, Saka lost pens for a while. It's definitely a rotational thing. We've seen this in previous seasons too. Like, sometimes away from home, for whatever reason, he gives away his pens, but at home he takes them, like stuff like that. And he gives them. So Odegaard was initially holding the ball. It's worth noting as well. Like, Saka at no point was taking this. It was really just a question of which guy did. And I know that one penalty doesn't cure all, but it does make me kind of laugh. I don't actually believe this, but maybe Gyökeres is the forgotten man in the Arsenal attack.
No,
I can't even say it.
I thought he looked like shit, dude.
Dude, he's bad. Him and Wirtz are both, like, I know it's like a thing of coming from a different league to the Prem, but both of those guys are really bad. Like, I'm ready to say it. Like, watching Liverpool, Wirtz turns over the ball in so many scenarios. Watching Arsenal, Gyökeres has so many chances in front of the net that he just completely skies or like misses, or it's unbelievable how bad these guys are.
No, the key differentiator between Wirtz and Gyökeres for me is that, like, I think both are clearly being impacted by the physicality of the Premier League.
Right.
But whereas Wirtz has other tricks in his bag, like Wirtz can, maybe eventually put together a dribble. Gyökeres, I felt like, was just physically dominating a lesser league where the guys were just lesser. And that was the big concern coming into him at the beginning of the season. Everyone's like, look, he's a physical player. He wins by playing hard against, like, kind of like just lesser teams, to be honest. Like, I don't want to insult the entire Portuguese league. But he was just dominating those guys physically, and then he comes to the Prem and he's not going to be able to do that. And sure enough, it seems like, he doesn't have the technique to fall back on like a Wirtz theoretically does. So I feel like, in a year's time, Wirtz could very well have figured it out and just like, if we want to really reach back into the bag, Luka Modric versus, Tottenham player before he went to Real Madrid was, not doing great for his first year, and then finally adjusted to the Premier League, and then was able to like put it together.
Right.
I could see that happening to Wirtz, but if Gyökeres doesn't like magically learn how to shoot, which is hard for a striker of his age, he could be in trouble.
Well, it is interesting too, because he's so big. Like, you see that's his strategy, is to be like a physical player, right? And that fits his build. It fits the way he plays. He's very much so like a Haaland-esque in that sense, not obviously in quality, but just in the sense of like being somebody who looks to dominate the defender. And he just doesn't. Like, he doesn't. He gets shaken up easily, can't finish his chances. Like, he's just tough to watch.
It was shades of Sesko, who I felt was similar when I was watching the Man United game. Like, just another player who's supposed to physically dominate them and then couldn't shoot. But whereas Sesko is like 20 and can learn, I feel like Gyökeres is supposed to be a more complete player right now.
Speaking of Everton, though, going into the fixtures, like, this is what we've talked about. They're at the top of the fixture ticker going from now on. I think it's really tricky, though. I was watching this game, and in the back of my mind, I was going, if they get a pen, who takes it? Like, I don't even know, right? Just because they've lost so many players. In an anti-Sharp moment, Barry came off at like the 60th minute or something for Beto, their other striker. They bring in Tyler Dibbling. They brought in a lot of the subs at one point, right, to just kind of give them some relief. But it's a really tough thing of looking at this fixture run and going, wow, this would be so nice to have one of those guys. And there's just no one that it seems like you can buy. You could go for a Jack Grealish. I don't particularly like.
Keep in mind, like, defensive fixture ticker.
My bad. Yep, my bad. But I'm sure there's still.
I think we keep adding and removing.
Yeah. Second.
Oh shit! So they're second. All right. Well, point stands then.
Yeah, but I think the thing that I think of with Grealish is that he is definitely a threat from the left side, but he thrives in an environment where he has somebody to get the ball to,
Yeah,
or he's able to cut in when there's guys that are drawing defenders, right? So I think Grealish is a good player and could at full strength potentially be a solid FPL asset. He's a little highly priced, but um, I think that's fine, but I think without similar thing is what we're talking about with a lot of other teams. It's like, what's the value of an attack when you lose certain players? And I think with this game, obviously it's Arsenal, so it's hard to say, but definitely looked to me like they were kind of out of ideas. You're losing so many players. Um, I also think for you and I who have a Dewsbury Hall, like obviously during when we were talking transfers, we were both talking about ways that we could upgrade him. But it's tough that we weren't given a timeline on what his hamstring injury is
yeah.
because
David Moyes literally said, "I'm not telling you what the timeline is." I'm like,
right.
"All right, thanks, asshole."
Yeah, total prick. But like, I do think it's interesting because let's say it's 2 weeks, which is very optimistic. It's probably more, but let's just play down that path. Well, then he still has Brentford, Wolves, Villa, Leeds, Bright. Like you're like, oh, I'll keep him, right? And I think the other thing is with a Dewsbury Hall, he's 5 million. Like he's sitting there, he's not taking up a lot of your money.
Not
So as
gonna
long as
drop
you don't,
the price either.
he actually he just did, but
Oh
it's yeah,
no.
it's all good. But yeah, it's with a player like that, like you're sitting there being like, well, where else can I go? Right. You going down doesn't quite make sense.
No, he's too low. So the problem I've been having with trying to solve his like just having him is that I need to free up a significant amount of cash to make a leap because it's like
Right.
leap up to Wilson, who I'm not that confident in,
And is
or
you've kind of missed the boat on too. Like doesn't
yeah,
have you'd probably want to sell him really
and then
quickly
it's like
after you get
then you
him.
got to leap like a whole tier higher to like a 6.0 guy or something like a Minta, but he's not doing great either. So
Right.
I'm not stoked on having Dewsbury Hall injured on my bench, but I'm not really sure what to do, like you said.
It feels like a thing where like it really just feels low priority of
Yeah, I agree.
could get rid of him. And to your point of like needing to go up, this is why Saka is just so enticing to break the
Mhm.
funds from, is because like again, when we were talking kind of the meta and what's the plan now, like there's really not very many high price players that you need to have. So it
Mhm.
feels like if you can get on the mental train of all right, just get rid of Saka, then you have enough money to do whatever you want the rest of your
Yep.
team. So
Yep.
yeah, can upgrade him, but it'll also feel weird if we upgrade him and then again he's back in 2 weeks and we're like, well, he's probably a fantastic pick from now on.
But
So
if that's the case, then we could easily get him. Like,
yeah,
it's the
he's
thing. He's
five.
so easy
Yeah,
to
he's
move.
5 million.
He's hard to move out of, easy to move into. I
Yeah,
think the other
sure.
thing I'll say real quickly on just the Everton attack is like if I was any manager and I know that Grealish is the only person capable of controlling a ball in the entire forward lineup, I would be doubling him immediately.
Yeah.
Like, it's known that Everton have two strikers that can score. They're two players who would Grealish would theoretically feed are now injured or at AFCON. And so I just don't think that Everton are worth investing in on the attack. And I also want to talk about Tark on the defense. So if we switch to the defense, they have the best defensive fixtures. But what's been really confusing is Tarkowski is probably someone a lot of people are eyeing up, but he's not been a DEFCON king like I expected, right? And when he has, Keane has pretty much also gotten the DEFCON. So if I had to go anywhere for an Everton defender as a Tarkowski owner, I think I would rather go Keane. And just
But he got him this weekend.
he got him this weekend, but he got 10 exactly.
Yeah.
It was halftime and he had one. He's playing theoretically a team he should get a lot of DEFCONs against. So it's like, how
Right.
likely is he going to DEFCON against Burnley? Now he might clean, so that's different. But if he cleans, that means Keane also cleans, and you're saving what is Tark like 5.4, 5.5? So you're
He's five
saving
five. Keen is
point 8
4.7. So yeah.
0.8 mil on that. Like I think that Keane capitalizes on both the DEFCONs and the clean sheet potential and then frees up a lot of money. Like if fucking Bruno Fernandes hadn't got injured this week, I was looking to address the defense in terms of getting rid of Tarkowski for a City defender and then probably upgrading maybe like an Anderson from West Ham next week or a Chow to a Chelsea defender. So I don't think that Tarkowski's worth the money, and I'm just generally cooling on Everton assets, period, even though the fixtures are really good.
Yeah. Can we talk a little bit about, I'm not sure which one of these. I'm thinking it's this one. No, this one. A little bit about this swing that it's showing here, right? Of like teams that you can jump to or swings and fixtures.
Mm-hmm.
I know I mentioned last week the thoughts of an early wild card. So pros and cons of that. I think the cons are just that there are going to be doubles and blanks later on that you may want to use it nearby. We obviously are also getting all of the chips back again. So you think about having to plan for a bench boost again, doing that kind of stuff. A wild card is really handy in doing that stuff. That being said, I think there's some really nice fixtures to be, or fixture turns to be able to take advantage of potentially doing it around this 21-22 timeline. It seems like there's a natural switch. There's also a pretty natural template at the moment. So just from like a high level perspective, without digging into like too many specifics, it feels like it could be a good opportunity to make those switches. That being said, if you're going that route, you obviously kind of want to adjust your transfers in the short term accordingly for that move, right? And not necessarily be looking at somebody who has really good long-term fixtures, but bad short-term, i.e. Rodgers or something like that. And instead be targeting this stuff right now. So it's hard to say. It's hard to plan for that too hard, but just along the lines of like overall, what are your thoughts on an early wild card in the second half? Like, do you think that the cost of going against the blanks and doubles in that sense is a good one, or not worth it?
I don't think it's worth it. I stand by that. I think the blanks and the doubles are like one of those things where if you're paying attention, the upsides have potential to be huge. Right. And, it's like, if it's a question of whether you don't have a team that can play in a double or you do, like, I think you would want to save the opportunity to have it. 100%. And then if I look at these swings, like, sure, there's a lot of swings, but there's not a lot of swings on teams that I really want. Like, I don't really care if Spurs are swinging. I don't really care if Brighton are swinging. I don't really care if Sunderland are swinging.
Right. It does also feel like the pool
Wolves are swinging. Like,
yeah, it does feel like the pool of players too is shrinking. Right. Like,
it's so small right now.
Like, they're of who you would potentially want. Because even players like a Palmer, and I could be wrong on this, right? Maybe he's suddenly able to play 3 games a week and I'm totally wrong. But from my perspective, and I think you share it, is like, I'm not so sure that he's going to be back at the level that he is. If anything, I see his injury getting worse before I see it getting better. So yeah, he may come in and steal minutes off a player you like or score the odd goal, but not necessarily somebody I want to pay 10.5 for. But along those lines, like, if we're all divesting from Saka, if we're all like, Bruno just got hurt, there's a bunch of players off at AFCON, it really does slim the player pool a lot. Obviously the other argument with this is that you can get those players who are coming back from AFCON before other people are able to. And I only think there's really one that is potentially like a good priority transfer, and that would be Bumo. But let's look at the fixtures again. Okay, so let's say he comes back in, I don't know, 20 or 21. Like, those are really good fixtures in Leeds and Burnley, but then they go right into Man City and Arsenal. So it may not be the best time to buy him anyway. Yeah, so I see your point on why that may be not the best move.
I don't think that it feels like taking a half step forward,
right?
Whereas doing it for the doubles might be taking like a 1.5 step forward,
right?
Or like even a 2 step forward. Like, the fixture changes in this period of time, while there are some significant ones for like guys like Chelsea, I just don't think are significant enough for the team. Like, a lot of the teams that are swinging really positively are still bad teams.
Right.
So they're swinging positively, but that means like, okay, maybe now instead of being 15th in the table, we'll be 13th or 12th. Right. It's not like the big guys, like the Arsenals of the world, really are having like huge fixture strings, and
even if they were, they're just good enough that it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. So like, I mean, and even if Chelsea's swinging really big, I'm probably only targeting a Chelsea defender. I'm probably not really looking at like a João Pedro or anything. Like, we still have all the same concerns about the Chelsea offense.
Yeah. So transitioning really quickly to us talking about Arsenal, we're looking at these fixtures now: Brighton, Villa, Bournemouth, Liverpool. Like, not the greatest set, but also not the worst, especially from an attacking perspective. And defensively, it's Arsenal. But then they just go into this amazing run: Forest, United, Leeds, Sunderland, Brentford, Tottenham. Like, that's a great long-term run. So I think you could maybe sell for a short term on the triple up, but we're still in the same spot as we've been long term with Arsenal and what the triple up is. It seems like the general consensus between me and you, as well as like the overall community, is a lot of people are selling Saka. So what do you think, if you could start right now, the best Arsenal triple up is go forward?
I mean, to be honest, I think the best Arsenal triple up right now is Timber, Raya, Saka. But I think that that's just an isolated pick of like what are the people who are most likely to produce points for Arsenal, not like
Right.
what is the thing that allows you to get the most benefit out of your
Sure.
entire team. If it's a question of that, then I think it's either add a second Arsenal defender and hedge your bets, but I don't think that's the right move. So then I think it's probably Rice. And then I think at some point down the line, you drop Rice down to a Gabriel if he comes back, because you'll have 6.06 million to do that, right?
Yeah.
Because Rice is 7-1 right now. And so that still allows you to have an Arsenal triple up because they're just a good team without having to have all of the money in the Saka. And when Saka does pop off, he's getting 2 assists or 1 assist, 1 goal, 10 points, 8 points. Like it's not crazy returns from him. So yeah, I don't think that right now, just because of like the fixtures in the next 4, that it really is a triple Arsenal defense. But I do think you want to have 3 Arsenal players just because they're a good team and leave yourself open to getting back into that triple defense, like you said.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. What else is there to talk about?
I don't know, man. I feel like we've kind of blasted through this one pretty well. Like I don't think we learned a ton this week. I think that it's just this weird holding period where a lot of sort of weird picks are scoring really well, and it's just a bummer when you're not on the end of those, right? Like
Right.
for us data boys, looking at a Rogers and like seriously consider bringing him in is like awful because he's had terrible XG. But
Yeah, it's really tough. Like, and he's clearly just a world-class player, and that's not news, right? Like we've known that about Rogers. It's just like, yeah, can he keep backpacking this team and being a superhero? And if he is going to do that, can he do that against Chelsea and Arsenal? I'm less concerned about Chelsea, but obviously Arsenal. Yeah, it's that one's tricky. I think along those lines, like for me personally, looking at that Rice versus Rogers, it's like Rice is kind of the steady Eddie. Like obviously he got an 11 pointer this week, and that's great, but he is, let's see, in terms of midfielders, is the 3rd highest scoring mid, only 2 points behind the leaders in Semenyo and Bruno. So even with Rogers doing back-to-back weeks of 15 pointers, Rice is still ahead of him in points. And like just to read off some of those points totals, it's like, so he had 11 this week, but then it's 2, 6, 3, 4, 6, 2, 13. So he's a player that's like, you could always argue to get rid of him, I think, because you're looking at it and being like, 6, 4, 3, like that's not that great. But because this is the DEFCON thing, like he's the boring tick along player, but he's just does really well. So there could also be some overperformance there. Like if you look at the XG and all that kind of stuff, like it's not great for him either. But he just finds so many different ways to get points.
Yeah.
He had 20 DEFCONs this week. Jesus.
Who, Rice did?
Yeah.
Against Everton?
Yeah.
Jesus, I didn't realize that. I didn't see that. No, I mean, I think that Saka has just not justified his price, and that's the bigger conversation, right? You could, if you wanted, go for the triple Arsenal defense, but I just don't think that in the short term that's the right move. And I think you do probably still want 3 Arsenal players, if only because there's not too many guys to spend a ton of money on right now. And therefore, I think Rice is the standout. And then he allows you later on to make a move, but he's not a bad pick.
Right.
And as someone who has like Saka, I'll be honest, the move I am most contemplating next week is probably dropping out of Saka for either Acuna and grabbing a Rice for a hit, or just doing a straight Cunha.
Yeah.
Because like I like the triple Arsenal, but I don't think we need 10 million in a Saka.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. All right. I think that covers it pretty well. To your point, I will definitely just stew on. I think the part that I'm set on is getting rid of Thiago. That's the only part that I'm like, I want to do. It's not 100% a need, but that's kind of where I'm at personally. Otherwise, the rest of it is still up in the air. But
well, so let's put it this way: I brought in Rogers, so just don't do that because I'd like to have good things happen to me. So just do something else.
Very fair. Who did Sharp bring in? What are we doing talking transfer plans without seeing who he brought? Because that's the whole thing.
That's a fair point. Let me check the group chat. I'll pull up his team for reference. I think he obviously got rid of Bruno. He was talking about, if I recall, I think he was saying potentially bringing in Rice and Ekatike for Bruno and Thiago out, which is just a pretty solid move. He's not talking about bringing in Rodgers.
And he did that for a hit, I think.
That'd be a -4 with a 0.1 in the bank, provided he already did that.
I think he did. Yeah. Yeah, so that makes sense. Obviously, you got to get rid of Bruno because who knows how long that injury could be.
He's probably out for a while.
Yeah, 100%. All right. I think that calls it. But yeah, thanks for hanging in there, folks. We are the Three Wanks FPL podcast. We'll see you guys next week.
See you, boys.
Happy holidays.
And girls. Happy holidays.